Assalamu alaikum. I am your sister Naomi. Inshallah, you are all doing well. Welcome to an episode of the series that I am calling They Are Not Your Family. I'm not sure in which order I'm going to post these, but as of right now, this is the first. So in case it's kind of out of order, I just wanted to record this, and I'm not sure when I'm going to release it, but I just wanted to say these things. I just wanted to make this a little announcement. So, subhanAllah, my mother passed away. It's been a few months, and I'm not going to deny, now having gone through the loss of a parent, that there's a difference between losing a mother, a nurturer, someone who took care of you, fed you, listened to you. There is a difference between someone's, actually what I just described was a mommy. There's a difference between a mommy passing away, a mommy, a mama, whatever words of endearment or whatever you call that woman in your life. There's a difference between that and that being gone and a biological mother. My mother was a biological mother. I'd never had that bond with her. I tried. I was never able to get to the place where her and I can have a real relationship because I felt that I was dealing with a wounded, trapped, abused 12-year-old. And subhanAllah, as I got older and I started to try to fix my own life for the sake of my children, my grandchildren, my descendants, my people that I'm responsible for, I started to realize that she had a relationship with me that was it was a role reversal where she wanted me to be her mother. She wanted for me to be emotionally responsible for her, and that's unnatural. I was just incapable of doing that. And at the very base, like our relationship, like it was mostly like a niece to an aunt in a way. Maybe not even that close. But I say all that to say that now that she's gone, I feel now happy and grateful that I was able to express myself to her, not in just those last days of her life, but the last few years. Like I held her to that. I held her to the way I felt. I was trying to hold her responsible, and I was trying to say, I understand that you may have gone through a lot of this abuse when you were young. However, I can only have a relationship with you if you are going to address those things. I'm not your healer, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I can only be in your life if you are getting the help. I don't care if it's therapy. I don't care if it's church. I don't care what it is, friends, but I cannot continue to deal with a wounded 12-year-old. I cannot. It's unnatural for children to be emotionally responsible for their parents. It's not natural. It is abusive. And she was really upset with me when I published my memoir. I thought it would be an opportunity for her and I to get closer. I thought that she would, acknowledge and take herself out of it. Even as a mother, I have 5 children. If any of my children wrote a book, and this is not an invitation to do so, but if they ever wrote a book or if they ever expressed in any type of way that they were not satisfied with me as a parent, I would own it. I would never take it personal. If they said my mother yelled too much and my mother, I feel that she should have done these things different, and the way I was affected by the decisions that my mother made was this, and that, I would own it, and I would say, what can I do to help? What, because I just did my best and nobody is perfect. And I thought that that is what I was going to have with my mother. Not that she had to apologize or grovel or owe me or anything like that, but I thought at the very minimum that she would at least see me as a person, even if just as a separated woman. Like, wow, you had those experiences. You felt that way. Okay. But my mother made everything about her. My father is the same way. And so the last few years, she just did not had to have anything to do with me. And I would try to reach out to her. And so now that she's gone, I have, even before she passed, I did have compassion for her. I have, I'm not going to say forgiven, because I don't think she's never really asked me. Even in our last days, she was like, we forgive each other. And I'm like, that's not an apology. I have let go, and I have processed, and I know that certain things weren't personal, and I was able to process and separate. And now I feel that since she's passed, some type of spiritual release has happened. I feel that, at least in my line, I am now the matriarch in my family. My grandmother is not here. My mother is not here. And I'm the older sister. I have a younger sister, and I have an older brother that's left. So, subhanAllah, I feel as now the head of the woman line in my immediate family, I kind of feel, if it makes any sense, more responsible to try to make as much changes in my family line and in my lineage and in my life as I can, which is why I was inspired to even share what I'm going through and the stories and all of the, some, not all, but some experiences, but all of the things that I had mentioned in the previous video about, the story times and the things that I want to share, because I'm not alone in this. We are all responsible for something. We don't want to just live a life where we just took up space, made a lot of noise, and then died. We do not. I don't. And I also do not want to have a lot of, I don't want to be one who inherited a lot of generational garbage and didn't do my best to at least make it lighter for my daughter and her daughter and on and on. So, I guess this video would be about that. I didn't expect to talk this long about the passing of my mother. But yeah, so I'm just reminding you that you have a responsibility. We all have responsibilities, whether we have children or not, to make the world a better place than how you left it. I know that sounds corny. Make your family better. And it starts with you. One of the biggest inspirations in my life was my grandmother, my father's mother. And she was, for many reasons, but she was inspiring to me because I feel, and this is just my perspective of who she was as a human. And people are going to have, if anyone in my family watches this, people have their different opinions. But I feel that my grandmother was abused, and she was abusive. My grandmother was an abusive mother. She, at least to one of my aunts, and even her telling me a story of how she kind of she lost her patience with one of my uncles, and she threw a high heel and hit him on the head, and she felt so bad. I'm not saying abuse in a malicious, evil way. She was overwhelmed. My grandmother had 9 children. She never went to school. She never learned how to drive a car. She was born and raised in Jayuya, which is like a rural area in Puerto Rico. She was a single mother of 3 children, and then she met my grandfather. Then she came out here to the United States. My grandfather struggled with alcoholism. There was domestic violence. There was a lot of physical abuse. And by the time I got older, I feel like my grandmother had some wisdom, but she was still of that generation where she wasn't 100% transparent. And perhaps she didn't know what she didn't know enough to really sit me down and give me some wisdom. But I felt that towards the end, she was never afraid to pivot, and she was never ashamed or embarrassed to change. By the time, because I grew up in the foster care system, when I was 3 years old, I was given to my maternal grandparents, and I was there for a few years with my youngest brother, and then he and I were put into the foster care system, and we were bounced around in the foster care system for about 6 years, something like that. And from the age of 4, till 10. And then I had an aunt, and she was estranged because my grandmother, this is my father's oldest sister. She felt like the black sheep of the family. Make a long story short, when I met my grandmother coming out of foster care, she at that time had converted from Catholicism to being a Pentecostal, and she was an evangelist. She was taking me to church, and I met my brother. I met my oldest brother. He and I are about 13 months apart, and I was 10, he was 11. And but anyways, my grandmother, she was never ashamed. People will talk about her behind her back and called her a religious fanatic, and she didn't care. And she, as I got older, she and my grandfather had a relationship where my grandmother was always trying to run out of the house. She was always busy doing something. She was in the church. She was fundraising. She was doing all these things. And my grandfather, it appeared to me that he was always like chasing her down. Like, where are you going? Where are you going? And my grandmother was like, I'm paraphrasing. And, she was saying all this in Spanish. Like, why are you worrying about where I'm at now? Now that you're like old and all decrepit and don't nobody want you, now you at home and now you want me to be here with you. Don't worry about me. Worry about all them women that you was chasing. Like, my grandmother was like, and I had asked her one time, like, Wella, why you talk to Wella like that? That's your husband. She's like, that's not my husband, okay? That's my friend, but that's not my husband no more. So she wasn't about this looking perfect, and then even ultimately towards the end, because I didn't have guidance, and I never lived anywhere longer than 2 years prior to living here in SoCal. I had never in my life lived, with my grandparents 3 years. I had never lived anywhere. I was in 3 different high schools. I was in about 9 different foster homes, if I count everybody. And so nobody raised me. Nobody can say they raised me. Nobody can say. And so when I lived with my grandmother, the time was really, really short. And so there was never an opportunity to really give me the wisdom and the guidance. However, when my life was all crazy and I'm like in my mid to late 20s, and one of my last conversations with my grandmother, I felt like, I felt trapped. And I was afraid to break the cycle. And I remember telling her, like, I don't want to do this anymore, but people are going to say things about me. They're already talking about me. And my grandma said, lo que no sirve se bota. You do what you got to do. Like, she literally said, what don't work goes to the garbage. What don't work goes to the trash. And she changed my life. She gave me permission to say, F what people are. I don't care. Who cares? You live your life, And so I think that I wish my grandmother had that confidence in herself when she was younger. Maybe her life would have gone along a lot further. Allah knows the best. God knows the best. But I feel that how she was, she gave me something. She didn't give me money. I didn't inherit money. I didn't inherit any type of property, but I inherited her spirit. I inherited her fearlessness, how her whole family turned against her because the religion, people talked about her. And, she was a lot more patient. I'm patient than I am because while my grandmother would go off on other people, she was very kind, at least with me. She was very kind with me. And so I say all that to say that we all have a responsibility. And now that my mother is gone, I'm going to take up my responsibilities, and I'm going to just continue to try and not only encourage and be a support to the women in my family that I'm responsible for, and try to teach them as best as I can, while also willing to learn and listen and have my mentors and have the women in my life that I strive to be like pour into me, but also share it here with you guys to encourage that, dear sisters, everyone has something to give. Everyone has something. Everyone has something to contribute. That's not just monetary, or the female power is spiritual. Our power is spiritual. Our power is not how many jobs we can hold down, how much money that we can make. It is how much nurturing, healing, and wisdom. It is us that make the house the home. It is us that bring life to situations. And I feel like sometimes when we neglect it in ourselves, I think that's the part of ourselves that is where depression starts, where self-doubt starts. So, but as I mentioned, I didn't expect for this video to be about my mother or my grandmother, but it is what it is. So thank you for watching if you've gotten to this part. And please, put in the comment, what woman inspired you? What woman in your family inspired you? Or that it doesn't even have to be anybody in your family. And what do you want to give to what do you want to leave behind? I want to be, forget being famous, forget the world, forget all that, man. I want, because I love genealogy and history, and I'm still searching in my family tree for somebody who did something. I want to be someone who contributed to my family. And I do have to give myself, some props. I did. There was a point in my life where all I had was a GED. There was a point in my life where all I was a single mom with a GED, and I can barely drive. Now, alhamdulillah, I have 2 college degrees. I published a book. I have a lot to offer. I have some wisdom. I have some experiences. And I feel like I am a good support to the women that I love and that are in my family and in my close circles. So, and that's only because I have women that pour into me, that I learn from, and I'm open and I'm willing to learn and to be corrected. All right. Inshallah, you enjoyed this, and please leave a comment, like, and share. Assalamu alaikum.